Right.
Okay, it's pop quiz time.
Let's see what they got for us.
Which country has the longest fence in the world? How about the second largest Greek population? 3 times more sheep than people? Okay, one word will give it away. Kangaroos! Yeah, I'm talking about...
You got loads of sheep. Wouldn't have thought of... The most Greeks. I would never have thought Australia had a lot of Greeks, if any.
the land down under. So, what do you know about Australia?
They like barbecues. And a beer. Is that a bit stereotypical? I don't know.
So let's start with the name. Australia comes from the Latin word australis, which means southern. Way back in the 2nd century, there were legends of a mysterious terra australis incognita, or unknown southern land. Well, now it's very known. So let's get to know more about it. Despite the stereotypes of hot, sunny weather year-round, the Australian Alps, which are the highest mountain range in the country, get more snow than the Swiss Alps do.
This might be completely ignorant of me. I never even knew Australia had mountains. Is that really ignorant of me? I don't know. It's funny. It's funny to think, and I'm sure there's going to be more on here. It's funny to think that we speak the same language. Technically, a lot of Australians were British, you know, if you know the history. And yet, we know very little.
Better grab your skis. The world's longest national highway is in Australia. It stretches for over 9,000 miles. For comparison, the Earth's diameter is about 7,900 miles. It's actually a network of highways that connects all capitals of the mainland states. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the Great Wall of China, but what about the Great Fence of Australia? Okay, that's not what it's called, but still, the Dingo Fence in Southeast Australia stretches for nearly 3,500 miles.
What the hell?
For comparison, it would easily cover the entire span of the U.S., from Los Angeles to Houghton, Maine. Now, it might not be so surprising to know that Australia is huge. It's about the same size as the continental U.S., about 2,500 miles wide. The distance from the west to east coast is further than Barcelona to Moscow. In all, Australia is the world's 6th largest country and the only one that's also a whole continent.
What I find interesting is that from my view, like I said, once again, I'm just probably coming across as a bit of an ignorant Brit, but not a lot of Australia is really built on. It's a lot of wilderness, and I so from my knowledge, I thought really it was only the kind of the east side that had any real population. I thought the east side was where the kind of all the old convicts were sent. The west side was where a lot of the indigenous, that sounds, I think that's a horrible word. The Aboriginal, that's the right one. The Aboriginal people were. How much of Australia is actually populated? Because I just don't know. I said I must come across so ignorant, and I really apologise. But it's amazing how little I know about Australia.
But with all that territory, over 80% of Australians live within 60 miles of the coast. This makes the country one of the most coastal dwelling populations in the world. And that means
I wasn't completely ignorant then.
whole lot of beaches. In fact, they have so many that if you decided to visit a new beach every day, it would take you almost 30 years to see them all.
God.
The biggest property in Australia is about 40,000 square miles in area. South Korea could fit into it with room to spare. The country's termites are busy building huge properties as well. Their mounds are the tallest animal-made structures on this planet. Before humans arrived, the continent was home to mega-fauna. If you lived there about 46,000 years ago, you'd be dead today. But you would have seen 10-foot-tall kangaroos, 23-foot-long goanna lizards, and ducks the size of an adult horse.
No, you wasn't.
Quack, quack. The largest living structure on the planet is the Australian Great Barrier Reef. By the way, it has its own mailbox. And there's a rumor that the fish there use eel mail. Yeah.
It's a dreadful joke.
Neither kangaroos nor emus can walk backward.
Really? Australians, did you even know that? Kangaroos cannot walk backwards. Wow.
That's a fact. And that's why they're painted on the Australian coat of arms. Keep moving forward. The platypus, an egg-laying mammal that lives only in Australia, is one of the rare venomous mammals on this planet. Luckily, while the venom has an excruciatingly painful effect on people, it's not lethal. The takeaway? Don't fuss with a platypus.
Don't mess with a platypus.
By the way, when the first platypus was brought to England...
What strange looking creatures platypuses are. Like, what are they? They're sort of ducks, but not ducks. They're like ducks crossed with beavers. Weird.
People there were sure that it was a joke. The English believed that Australians had sewn a duck's bill onto a rat's body to play a trick on them.
Thought beaver.
Yeah, right up until he bit them. Not laughing now, are ya? Swimming in the surf during the day had been illegal in Australia up until 1902. But after one guy calmly entered the waves of Manly Beach one afternoon that year, surf bathing became increasingly popular. The largest Greek population outside of Greece itself is in Australia.
Madness.
Actually, to be more precise, in Melbourne. More than 160,000 people who live there say they come from Greek descent.
That's absolute madness. Like, I would never associate Greece and Australia together. Like, what? No, I just wouldn't ever associate Greece and Australia. Nothing Greek says Australia, and nothing Australia says Greek. That's a strange one. If you're from Melbourne, do you know any Greek people?
Melbourne was the richest city in the world in 1880. These days, Tokyo, Japan holds this title. And until 2018, Melbourne had been rated as the most livable city in the world for 7 years in a row.
Wow.
But then it was bumped down to second place after Vienna, Austria.
Still not bad.
Melbourne, get back in the game. One of Melbourne's founders was John Batman. Yeah, that was his real name. And get this, the city was temporarily called Batmania. Too bad they decided to change it to Robinville? Nah. In 2018, Australia ranked third after Norway and Switzerland on the Human Development Index. This index is based on education, life expectancy, and citizens' income. Basically, they got a good thing going down under there.
So basically, you guys are rich. Is that what that's saying? You guys are rich. And you've got plenty of money, plenty of disposable income. I suppose it's all relative, isn't it? Maybe your costs are higher. I tell you what, so I did watch one of my first videos on the channel about 3-ish months ago was one of these that are, you know, something like 50 things in the United States. The Australian things are so much cooler than America. Like, yeah, the Australian things are so much better than the American version of this.
In 2005, security guards at the Parliament House in Canberra were prohibited from calling people mate. But the ban only lasted for a day, mate. G'day.
What?
If you're ever in Western Australia, you can visit one of their many
Wow.
super salty pink lakes.
Awesome.
They get the bubblegum hue from a certain type of algae and bacteria, and they're totally safe to swim in. Just be careful what you chew. Oh, and be sure to take a selfie while you're swimming in what looks like a giant pool of Pepto-Bismol. You can thank Australia for coming up with the word selfie in the first place.
Really?
There are about 74 million sheep to 25 million people in Australia, which makes an impressive ratio of 3 to 1. Only China and India have more than that. Oh, and the kangaroo thing is totally true. There are twice as many kangaroos as there are people there.
Like, I knew Australia's known for kangaroos, but twice as many. I suppose maybe it's a case where in Australia they, you know, in other parts of the world, in Africa and places, the development of people has kind of, you know, ruined the habitat of different animals. But maybe that's not necessarily the case in Australia as much. maybe because it is so vast, there's still plenty of space.
That's 50 to 25 million. Speaking of which, when a baby kangaroo is born, it's only half an inch long. It's also hairless and totally pink. Kind of looks like a gummy bear. What else is there in Australia? Oh, that's right, koalas. And to top that, there are 10 times more camels than koalas.
Camels?
Australia is the source of a lot of the Middle East's camels.
You've got camels. I didn't even realise you had camels. I never associate Australia with camels. Koalas, yes. Kangaroos, yes. Sheep and camels, probably not. Might be me being ignorant again. I don't know. But it just wouldn't be something I associate with Australia. But I suppose you've got a lot of deserty area, don't you? I think. In the middle.
Now, in Western Australia, it's against the law to be in possession of more than 110 pounds of potatoes. Well,
as you do.
Every country has its obscure, bizarre laws. The architect of the world-famous Sydney Opera House got the idea of this unique construction while munching on an orange. If you combine all the sails of the building's roof, you'll get a perfect sphere.
The Sydney Opera House, now it's one of those things that looks pretty. I've flown over it in Flight Simulator on my VR, but is it that impressive? I don't know, you guys are from you guys watching this are probably from Australia. Is it that impressive? Is it one of those things like in London, it's a bit of an attraction and that's about it? I don't know. I know it. I see it getting lit up at New Year. But is it just a bit overhyped? A lot like the stuff in London, just overhyped.
The most ancient fossils in the world were found in Australia. They were no less than 3.4 billion years old, even older than my leftovers in the fridge. There are so many different species in this country that only 25% of them have been discovered so far.
How have only 25%? Well, for starters, how do you know it's only 25%? Like, how do you know it's only 25% if you haven't discovered them? Surely that's a nonsense figure. And how would you not have discovered pretty much all of the animals and creatures? Because with the technology, cameras and whatnot, 25%. How do you know it's 25% if you haven't discovered it? Yeah.
Of the animals discovered to be native to Australia, none have hooves. Burger King miraculously turns into Hungry Jacks as soon as you land it.
Oh, I love a Burger King burger. I love a burger. A double Whopper. Gotta be a double. Chips are rubbish. Gotta have McDonald's chips, but yeah. A double Whopper from Burger King. Or Hungry Jacks.
In Australia, it's the Aussie franchise of the famous fast food chain. Australia is a unique continent that doesn't house any active volcanoes. It's also the flattest continent on our planet.
So when I said that I didn't think there was any mountains, it must have a mountain, but it is quite flat.
But it's got plenty of mountains.
Yeah, weird.
And one of them is called Mount Disappointment. It's just
Really?
2,600 feet tall. And naturally, explorers William Hovell and Hamilton Hume expected to see a great view from the top. However, after climbing the mountain, they discovered that there were too many trees growing on top and blocking the view completely.
So who's been at Mount Disappointment? Have any of you been at Mount Disappointment?
Guess how the men felt? Australia has tons of unique flora and fauna species that you won't find anywhere else in the world. Among those are a staggering 1,500 spider species.
No, thank you.
Spider species.
I hate spiders.
On the bright side, and we are, well, some of them are fatally poisonous, most are completely harmless. But how do I tell them apart? Oh, the poisonous ones wear signs. Got it. It's also where you'll find 21 of the world's top 25 most venomous snakes. More than 90% of Australia is covered.
Just snakes and spiders and creepy crawlies. Just not nice. Just not nice. Like, going out, what's the worst thing that can happen if you walk outside your house in the UK? You cross over the road and you might get hit by a car. Not that happens, but Australia, you walk outside and you get bitten by something, or punched by a kangaroo or something. So dangerous in Australia. Like, it might be sunny, but your lives are at risk. That's obviously said in jest.
With some kind of vegetation. Since 1988, Australia has had a national floral emblem, and it's the golden wattle. When this plant blooms, it gets covered with the country's national colors, green and gold. Australia is a multinational country with more than 200 different languages and dialects spoken there. The most popular non-English languages are Mandarin, Greek, Arabic, Vietnamese, and Cantonese.
When you think of Australia, now, I don't think of Australia as very multinational, multicultural, whatever you want to call it. I know there's quite a few Asian people from different Asian countries, but it's still not somewhere where I think is multicultural, multinational, whatever you want to call it. It just doesn't seem that way. It seems very white, other than the Aboriginal. But even watching AFL, even watching the AFL games, it's predominantly white people. There aren't many Aboriginals or coloured people that are playing. Black people, brown people, yellow people, whatever you want to call it. It seems very white. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, this video is saying I'm wrong, but I'm not sure.
There are 19 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Australia, including 12 natural sites, 3 cultural sites, and 4 mixed sites. The difference between Australia's total length and its width is only 200 miles.
What?
Hey, do you have an...
Really? Hang on. Let's go back to the map. Surely that's not right. Only 200 miles for such a huge place, and it looks so much longer. That can't be right. And also, what's the little island below? Can anyone tell me that? What's that little island there? Because I'm oblivious. I have no idea.
200 miles. Hey, do you have an 8-hour working day? You can thank Australian stonemasons for that. In 1865, they demanded to make 8-hour shifts the standard, and it spread throughout the world from there. With 8 people per square mile, Australia has an extremely low population density. For comparison, there are about 93 people per square mile in the US. The national Australian airline, Qantas, uses recycled cooking oil to power its interstate flights. So, have I missed any cool...
Well, much cooler facts than the United States one that I did. Some that, like I said, I think the problem with as someone who's British or English, it like I said, it amazes me how we are basically the same. You know, myself and Australians, you know, we are basically the same. You guys, well, you non-Aboriginal people basically are coming from the UK, Britain. But there's so much I don't know. There is so much I don't understand, I don't know about Australia, and that seems strange because of how similar we really are. I think, for example, the British are more similar to Australian than the British are to Americans or United States people. But even then, there's just so much I don't understand and don't know. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be good to learn more. It's going to be good to learn more, and maybe one day I'll take a trip down to Australia. I hope you enjoyed, guys. If there's any facts on here or anything that's just as stupid and wrong, let me know. If there's any other cool facts you've got, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.